get it going.
Let's roll.
Welcome to Two Homers and a Realist. This is game week. We are sitting here August 31st. We are 3 days away, boys, from... I can't believe it's here.
3 days.
I can't believe it's here.
The longest off season.
The craziest, biggest, nutsiest off season in a long time. But for me, one that builds up with better and better and better, not just relief after a series of panic and pain, but just confidence about where we're headed as a program. Leave aside where we're going to get into how good we think we're going to be this year and all that. Just pride about the direction, about the improvement. Everything to me is just so much better and brighter than it was before. Almost similar, and don't slap me for this, similar to how it was a cleansing when John Blake took over from Schnellenberger. Because Schnellenberger it was a weird program with a weird dude who made a lot of big mistakes on and off the field. At the very least, John Blake had a good heart in it and was a true Sooner and really wanted the best for the university. He had his issues. He had his problems. I'm not saying Brent Venables is John Blake, but I am saying he's part of the Sooner family. And that is the part that I find just extremely exciting. What are you guys' thoughts in general about where we are right here with game week?
I concur with just about everything you said. I think, you look at past off seasons, you've had so many different types of adversity, whether it be arrests or just general question marks. The one, what seemingly for most programs would be a big punch in the gut with what we had to experience with Cale Gundy a few weeks ago. The program, and Jay will probably speak to it a little bit more with the recruiting side of things, we've not even close to missed a beat, come close to missing a beat. So again, building on excitement, super excited to see what's to come, and just ready for Saturday, honestly.
Awesome. Lucas, what do you think?
I'm excited. I'm more so excited this year than last year.
You're a homer.
Oh!
I think
He's a homer.
Whoa.
We got
He's
all
on
homers
board.
in the house.
Whoa.
I think we will be tougher. The one thing we always didn't love about Lincoln's teams, and it wasn't just the defense wasn't as tough. It just seemed like we were flashy, but we never had toughness. And I think it's going to be the opposite this year.
I think we saw the toughness leave really as we transitioned from Baker to Kyler, and then we were done. Those offensive lines were tough, but that was the last bit of toughness, and it didn't translate into receivers. It didn't translate into running backs.
I think Jalen Hurts was tough.
Jalen Hurts was tough.
But he was the last.
The
tough.
last man
Yes.
who was tough. And
Rattler
I think,
was not tough.
I think that's why he was working out
He was
after
flashy.
games, because he was like, these guys are soft.
Yeah, Rattler was busy throwing balls behind his back. He was flashy. Caleb Williams, he's got the chance to be tough. I think if he was still here, I could say that he was going to be a tough guy.
I think he could have fit into this
But
system.
I'm excited about the defense hitting people. The videos that OU has released, you watch the OU DNA on the ESPN Plus thing, and even though there wasn't much to glean from it, I really thought the hitting was good. There was a bunch of defensive backs tackling running backs as they come around the edge, hitting guys over the middle, and it seems like we never tackled in practice the last couple of years.
I don't think we did.
Even at the end of Bob, like the last 2 years of Bob, I feel like
Yeah.
they were just afraid of the injury bug, so we were less tough because there was no hitting. And it seems like Brent's like, injuries are going to happen. Let's hit people, because when the games are live, you got to bring them down.
Which is, I think, actually something that helps injuries not happen, because you're actually applying the pressure. You're not afraid of it. You've also worked out all off season, so you're stronger. But when you're timid, you're setting yourself up for problems. Every time I've been injured doing sports, it's when I made mistakes being timid or playing in a way that I probably shouldn't have been playing because I was tired or whatever. And when I was going full speed, I didn't get hurt. The body's made for that. So I think that is a good point. Jay, what are your thoughts?
Oh, same. I'm full on optimistic. I can't even say enough. I'm giddy. I'm ready. I think the whole team's going to look completely different. I really do. I mean, even from the players just sitting on the bench and the players waiting to go in.
The engagement.
Not just the starters. I mean, I think everyone's going to be absolutely locked in. I think every coach, every coordinator is going to be completely locked in. I think there will be 120% accountability on every snap. Like, I do not think, and I'm not dogging the guy in Justin Fields or something. You cannot play a whole game like Justin Fields for Brent Venables.
Justin Broyles.
Not Justin Fields. I'm sorry. The other safety.
Justin Broyles.
No Fields.
No,
Patrick Fields.
Patrick Fields. My bad. I don't know what I'm saying. Patrick Fields. You cannot play a whole game that way and still stay on the field. It's just not going to happen for Brent Venables. I don't care who you are. He will move to the third, fourth person in the depth chart at your position until somebody
and he'll say, "Who's
does
going to play hard for me?"
What he wants done
and
on the field.
And you look back at those teams of, especially '99, when they did not have anything close to the talent level they would eventually have and very quickly have. And you look at those defenses especially, which of course he had a lot to do with that primarily, and how many guys were just big effort guys. And they were out there, and those guys did not go to play in the NFL. Those guys did not get drafted. Those guys did not even try because they were not that level of athlete, but they gave it their all, and they played so hard. I mean, Rocky Calmus, we used to joke, he used to go in the locker room after an injury and just get him to weld some rebar into his neck, and he came back out. And he just kept going. Those guys just wouldn't stop. They hit hard. I do think it'll be a lot about effort. And I think kids will understand that. They'll say, if I want to see the field, I just have to put in the effort. I just have to let him know I'm going to be out there going 100%. And it'll get rewarded where I don't think that got rewarded in past years. In past years, I think they overlooked those things. In fact, I think it's as if sometimes they just looked and said, well, wait a second, was that guy a 4 or 5 star recruit? Well, we can't possibly play him.
Yeah,
and
because
he can never see the field.
Because some of the rumblings from players on social media and their parents on social media, different things, they would kind of snicker at the idea of, well, we play, the Tuesday practices are really important, and who plays the best on Tuesday gets in the games. And they were mocking it because I think several players had better practices throughout the week, and then we're riding the pine
and it was
the whole game.
It was not just mocking; it was irritation, and it was resentment, and we saw it in parents and everybody. And there's got it when there's smoke, there's fire. Has to be a lot of truth in all of that, especially when you're talking about complaints coming at that time at a 7-0, 8-0, 9-0 team. It was different than if it was a team that was struggling for a 500 record, and you say, well, write that off for people. Everybody's got a problem with it. Their victory has 1,000 fathers, and loss has no is an orphan. That wasn't the case here. This was a 9-0 team going into Baylor, and you had parents. I'm thinking of one father in particular that was just livid about the situation and saying this is not right. And so it's a different environment.
Yeah,
for sure.
I think it's crazy how quickly the mentality of we're done playing for individuals here and we're going to play for one another. And I think to your point, both of your points is you're going to have guys on the sideline who are ready to go to help the team out. Like you just said with Rocky Calmus, was just a guy who wanted to go play ball and wanted to play for the guys standing next to him. And yeah, there's going to be some of the guys who are flashier and do their thing and naturally, but I think the overall, it is so shocking to me how quickly you can bring a new mission statement into play and have the amount of buy-in that you've had in less than 9 months, essentially. I mean, it's just wild. So I think that's going to be fun to watch by itself.
Which made Desmond's comments on game day so hilarious, was not being unsure if the team was going to buy into how Brent Venables wants things done and how he does things.
Yeah,
so
Desmond Howard only
is he a
watches
minimum
Michigan
wage
football.
employee?
Hopefully.
No, he gets paid millions of dollars for this, and he has people within that organization. I don't understand that. How can you be that ill-informed? That is your job.
How can ESPN
let that happen? Because if you said that's for ratings, well, that would only, or excitement or whatever, the controversy, that would only work in Oklahoma. We're not big enough of a market for you to care about that.
Right.
You should be saying the things that actually are good information, and you get some credibility by saying things that maybe people don't know, because apparently no one in this nation knows that the buy-in is really, really, really solid.
I mean, they're still paying Lee Corso to talk.
This is true. They may not know what they're doing.
Exactly.
There. He knows where a body's buried or something. I don't know what it is. It's a very sad thing, and
it's hurting.
Cringy
it's hurting
and
him
ugly.
as a person.
It really is bad.
Like you're tainting that man's
Someone
name.
needs to step up and say this isn't right, and this is not. it's embarrassing, and I don't know. It's a weird, awkward situation.
It's just not how you want to remember him.
Exactly, and that's all you're going to remember. Let's remember all the stupid shit he did for years and years before the stroke and all that. Let's not remember this.
Well, it's been what, 4
This is
years
sad.
removed? 4 years removed
Yeah.
from that, at least.
Yeah, and it's just gotten worse.
It
He's
has.
very old.
Yes. And he shouldn't have to be getting up. And I know everyone says he loves his job, and he says he loves his job.
Sure.
Look, man, go be
You're not
around the
good at
guys. Yeah. Don't
Or a short segment that he gets, right?
Right, like Beano Cook. That's what they used to do
Corso's
with Beano
Corner
Cook
or something. Give him 5 minutes
for
to...
over a decade, they had Beano Cook who couldn't put a sentence together. They had him on there to talk about how great Notre Dame was. It was a short little segment. They dialed him in.
pre-recorded.
They didn't have him on there the entire time.
I don't know that Corso could name a third of the college coaches coaching right now.
No,
And where they're at.
Not even close.
No, the other day was sad. I mean, that was watching a man like really like struggle in his.
Yeah, it's
in
a
his element.
testament to how much ESPN slipped, how much game day slipped.
And now that Bob's
It's
not on
kinda
the
sad.
Big Noon, I'll never watch it because I can't stand Urban
I
Meyer.
didn't know he wasn't on Big Noon.
Yeah.
I didn't know
he
that.
left because he's coaching an XFL team,
Okay.
and
I didn't
that's an
know that.
ESPN property, I believe.
Oh,
and
really?
Not a Fox property.
Well, I'm very glad to hear that
so
because
Urban Meyer is back in the seat. On
well, I
Big
knew he
Noon.
was back. I didn't know
And I
he
can't
was
watch that.
replacing Bob. So that was I already was thinking I don't want to watch that. I don't want to watch that because I don't believe it's a very good show. I definitely don't want to watch it if Urban Meyer's on there. And now that Bob's not there,
Yeah.
that's as easy.
Yeah, they literally told he had to choose XFL or even though they didn't coincide time wise, it was because they thought when people saw him on the screen, that's promoting another network's product.
That's like
Even
back
though they're
to
two different sports.
1970s level network
It's
stuff.
called one's college football and one is semi-professional football.
Right. That's back in the old days when somebody's on Carson and they say that appears on another network and they wouldn't
That's
say.
Fox not knowing how to
That's
be
Fox
there.
being Fox.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to change up our order here a little bit. I want to start with just going around the room and talk about our feelings on offense and defense before we get to the win-loss predictions for OU. So let's start with offense, and let's actually put special teams in here. We were talking about that before, and that's pretty important. But let's talk about offense. Are we going to be better than we were in 2021, in 2022, in 2019? I'm going to dare say we're as good as in 18 and 17. But how are we going to compare this year compared to prior years recently or compared to how we would like to be? Who wants to start that off? Jay, you want to start that
I'll
off?
go. All right, so 2019, Jalen really did carry the team. He got all the hard yards. It was not a great thrower, but you have CeeDee Lamb out there. I think we'll be better than 2019, 20, and 21. I just think we're going to be very physical. I think we're going to blow opponents off the ball. And the simplicity of the offense is, I mean, it's just a numbers game. I think you load the box, we're going to throw quick passes. You don't bring your safeties up and whatever, we're just going to run right up the gut and make you pay.
I don't know enough about it, but will Gabriel be enabled to make a lot of audibles himself, or will he look to the sidelines and get a call right before? How does it work?
To the
in
best of
Levy's
my
offense?
knowledge, I think it's just something that he reads. And I think the receivers have to read it too, because
That's what they used to do at Baylor.
Because not every play is just I'm only blocking or I'm going out for a route. I think they have to read it too.
Okay.
So I think the receiver has to look over, kind of count the box and be like, I'm going to do a slant here just in case because the numbers look like that.
Mm-hmm.
And
That
not
gives
really
us more room for error then.
possibly.
As opposed
yeah.
to not just looking to the sideline and the coach.
Well, maybe they do.
signaling
But
in.
maybe they do. But I think you have to kind of make it a last second deal.
Depends on
as
who
a
it is.
quarterback
Yeah, that's true.
because the defense can shift around all
Depends
over
on
the
how
place.
good he is. I mean, think about if you've got Baker or Kyler, you're pretty confident in that guy in college. Not obviously here in the pros, but in college, you're pretty confident in them making the right read there. And then it comes down to your other skill positions. Can they make the read? As long as it's a simple slant, it's pretty obvious to see if the guy's slanting or not. You're not throwing it to where he's going to be. You're throwing it to him. It's
I
more
know
complex
Baylor-
on a deep route.
Baylor, what I always thought this was very interesting strategically. They almost sent players deep
Every time.
every time.
Every time. I remember
And if anything, it just wears out the defense.
Exactly.
You're just
Exactly.
whoever you want at receiver. Hey,
Right.
burn
They
deep.
had like Corey Coleman,
Just-
who was tiny but could go deep. Then they had those dudes that were
Yeah.
like 6'5" that could go
Yeah,
crazy.
like
fast.
Gibson or somebody
Yeah.
or Nick Anderson.
Mims
that-
was big.
That's a good point.
But really, if you start wearing out the secondary, like
Absolutely.
gosh, I
Well,
keep
it's
running
a great
gassers down the
strategy.
sideline.
It's a great strategy, especially from the standpoint of you interchange people on receiver more than you do in the defense.
Mm-hmm.
And so you don't know defensively if you're needed to be covering, because even it could be me lining up. You got to cover me. If I run deep, you can't just let me go.
Well, that's the other thing. How many
So
times?
you run through your entire receiving roster and just say go deep.
But
go
think
deep,
if you
go deep.
think if you cover someone deep 5 times,
Exactly.
right? And
Exhaustion.
Then, and it's a run play all 5 times. You might take a couple of steps off this next time.
Absolutely.
And we're actually throwing it this time.
And
Absolutely.
then it's a stop and go, and then they're wide open.
Now I remember that I had totally forgotten Baylor used to employ that strategy, and it was brilliant. It was very good, and definitely wore us down, especially that year in Waco that they beat us. I remember that in particular. So that's a good point.
I
Other
think
thoughts on offense?
statistically, we'll be better than the 20 and the 21 offenses. Play or yards per play, I think will be higher. I think the scoring will be definitely higher than last year. Probably on par with 2020. I'm still interested to see the rushing. I don't think we have a great running back. I hope that that's proven wrong.
Do you think we had a great running back last year?
I think Kenny Brooks was a great running back.
I think he's a great college running back.
What
Yeah.
was amazing about it, but what I get at, I'm not trying to knock the guy at all. It was hard for me to ever believe he was a great running back. But he was. Statistically,
yeah.
he was amazing.
He just looked like he ran so slow that he wasn't a great
8 yards a carry. I mean,
Yeah,
it's just
yeah.
every
yeah,
time.
I know. The numbers were phenomenal.
And then
So
after
what I
the-
get at is maybe we're underestimating how good these running backs can be, because it was easy to look at him going into the season. Like, we didn't feel like it was the biggest loss in the world when he set out the year of COVID. We were disappointed, but it wasn't like Adrian Peterson.
we
said
did
he's
because
gonna sit
Ramondre
down.
didn't
yeah,
start
it
for
felt
6
like
games.
a big loss because Ramondre
Well,
was
that
out.
felt like a loss just because we didn't have somebody
Right.
and Sermon left.
I
But
don't-
him
I don't
himself,
know-
that
right.
wasn't a loss.
But I don't know that we have anybody as good as Brooks or Ramondre or Sermon on the roster yet.
Yes, I agree.
I don't know.
We don't know.
I mean, I hope I'm hoping we got guys that average 6 or 7 yards of carry, and the points moot, and we rush for 185, 200 yards a game, and we're like, hell yeah.
there's a.
But I don't
would agree.
I think passing wise, it's going to look. It won't be like. It won't be like Leach hypo year, but I could see it looking like the Mangino hypo year in 2000, where we run the ball quite a bit. I mean, we've got a lot of shorter passes that turn into bigger plays. Like little, like a in and out slant where they
Bubble
come in and
screens.
they go back
Yeah.
out and he throws it 7 yards and that turns into 12
Yeah.
or that turns into 17.
Yeah.
I think we will see a lot of that, and there will be some
Well, I imagine
floating
you
the ball
would.
deep, 40 yards downfield over shoulders.
Well,
and
also
stuff.
what year was it? It was Kevin Wilson and Landry Jones where we got into such a very fast tempo, and you saw a lot of that,
yeah.
and that lends itself to fast tempo and can be just lethal. I imagine
I think
that's
there might be a
Levy
lot of
offense.
comparisons between Hypo and Gabriel. Not necessarily going to win the national championship, but just
Well,
they've got the smarts.
they're both
familiar
left-handed.
with the system, both left-handed, and I think the accuracy is going to be good. But I'm not sold on the deep ball yet. But I hope he proves me wrong.
Well, depends.
last quarterback
I've seen
we
him.
had couldn't throw the
He
ball
seems
deep.
to have a strong arm. He seems to.
He doesn't
He
have a
seems to
Baker
throw
or
it pretty
Kyler
good.
arm.
But yeah, let's not
But
compare
not many
him to
people
like
do.
we look back at these highlights they've been putting on Twitter. The Toby Rowland and the radio crew
Yeah.
and all them. It's like Jason White, Sam Bradford.
Bradford.
It's like,
Yeah.
oh my
All
God,
four
these
of those
guys could
won
throw.
Heismans.
Oh my God, they could throw the deep ball.
Yeah.
It was just so. And of course, we're looking at highlight reels. We're not looking at the balls that were missed.
Right.
It's just so peach basket. Now today with the Sterling Shepard ones, it was and his father, Derek Shepard. God, I can't believe it escaped me. It was interesting to watch those balls. Sterling had to come back for a lot of those balls, depending
Yeah.
on who the quarterback was, and he had to go up for him and fight. A lot more like what you saw last year with Caleb and some of the balls he threw deep. And then Danny Bradley, it was so amazing. Like, he was definitely an option first, passing quarterback second. He He had a very weird throwing motion, but he was effective for sure. Well, I would tend to agree with those thoughts. I'm pretty high on the offense, as you will see throughout the entirety of this podcast. I'm very optimistic and very homerish, but I think the offense is going to be very strong. I think they're going to excel past what we've seen in recent years. I expect consistency to be a bit improved, noticeably improved. But that may be a low bar with as much inconsistency and weird stuff that we've had in the last few years. Obviously, Rattler did not start off 2020 very strong. When Stevenson came back and we sort of gelled as an offensive unit, he ended the year pretty strong. But then obviously last year was just a train wreck after a train wreck in different ways on offense, and never really stabilized until perhaps you could say the bowl game, which is not exactly a fair comparison for a number of reasons. So I would expect you're going to see something that's a lot more coherent throughout the entirety of a game, much less a season. And I think that'll be something, not just the offense, but the defense as well, the coherence and the complete game that will help us to make it look like we're actually a football team that knows what we're doing for an entire 60 minutes. Connor, what are your thoughts on offense?
Pretty much on par. I mean, I think this offense is going to score some points. I think overall, so to answer the question, I think we will be better than 20, better than 21, and I think we'll have an opportunity to be better than 19, because I think Lebby's offense provides kind of a safeguard to consistency. I think kind of what you just said is, to what Lucas just said is, I think we're going to take a lot more of what's given to us as opposed to banking on these big plays or these, we've got to, when we throw a pass, we better be getting 12 to 15 yards at least, when, like you just said, 7 yards could turn into 12 yards. Or, with pounding the run game like we think Lebby is going to do, it's not only going to tire the defense, like Jay said, but it's just going to open things up just holistically for everyone. So I think our slot receivers are going to get a lot of run. I think they're going to have a lot of opportunity to be good, just by the way the offense is going to be run. But I think you're going to see, it's going to be very similar to what we've seen in the past with the Wilson offenses and the paces that we're running. Mm-hmm. It's going to be a blast to watch. I'm excited to see a little bit of urgency. I think there were so many checks last year and maybe the last couple of years, just Lincoln Riley trying to
outsmart himself.
Yeah, the perfect play call.
Yeah, to be
every play.
Yeah.
Well, think how many times we either had to delay a game, or we barely got the playoff, or had to burn a weird timeout in a weird time. Like Lincoln, you might need that by the end of the year. Huh?
Stupid substitutions when you got something working.
Stupid substitutions when you have things
like,
working.
This receiver ran 2 plays, we better get him out and bring another receiver in.
Nonsensical substitutions.
It was such a trying to be the maestro, fine-tuning everything.
Well, think how many of those, speaking of substitutions, think how many of those, when we were running that pace offense, of the illegal substitution calls the defense would get, because we wouldn't make those subs. And we would take
pound it.
That was one thing that Landry Jones was great at.
Oh, he was so good.
Was phenomenal at getting the playoff.
Well, they used to not hold the ball like they do now either.
Yeah.
Well, but they only hold the ball when you do a substitution. Right. But you're saying even if we had one.
Yeah, right. Back in the day, the rule, they weren't holding.
Right.
You could sub somebody off, and they weren't standing over the ball holding it. They changed
I think
that.
But you don't even have to sub.
That change.
Yeah, you don't have to sub. You can just keep running the same guys. That's something that I would scream down. Just run the play.
We talked about that on half the postgame pods last year.
Yeah, why do you need it? It doesn't matter. Just go. Just run the play.
It's not. Yeah, it's not like Lincoln Riley last year
or
the offense. I mean, it's not. The offense never found enough of a rhythm last year. Why? Just like look in the mirror. Like what can you change? That was a big factor in a lot of the broken plays that we would have. The classic, the rush 3, drop 8 mentality is defense have had plenty of time to check out in and out of plays because we're always running people off the field. So I think we're gonna have people on their toes. I think you may see some. I think it may take a game or 2 or 3 to kind of get the offense in the rhythm that we want it to be in. I think it's good that we start. I think it's good we start with UTEP and Kent State to get a couple of good.
Maybe good with Nebraska too, from what we've seen.
Are you guys worried at all about 3 and outs with the tempo?
No, I was going to bring that up in defense a little bit. I'm not. I mean, you're always worried about it, but I saw so many bad 3 and outs in the past few years. I don't think I'm worried about it being a little quicker than it otherwise would be. It's not like tempo increases those three and outs any more than anything else. Just not executing on offense creates threes
Yeah, but
and outs.
if you start the ball at the beginning of the game, say you take it on the 25-yard line and start the game, and you're 15 minutes left in the first quarter, and you run a 3 and out in 45 seconds, and then you're punting, and it's at the 14-15 mark or whatever, you're like, well, shit, that was a crazy fast 3 and out. When before that 3 and out would have been
I don't think that's
at
material.
the 12-17 mark
I don't
or
think
whatever it would have been.
No, it wouldn't have
Probably
been.
depends what
I
your
don't think it
defense
would have
does.
been that much.
Does your defense turn around and do
Yeah.
another 3 and out for the
So
other team? Or?
I think where it matters to agree with you is not in the first play, because the difference between it wouldn't be 12. I mean, maybe
I was
it's
just using
12
that
or
as an
whatever.
example.
I think your better
At
example
any point in
would
the game,
be-
it's the same amount of time.
But it's more important later in the game or later in the half, where you're giving up the last drive of the half, and you're thinking, well, we could. But then again, it's not like you've got a series of plays that say, well, these guarantee first downs. Now you can, if you've got 4 minutes to play, you might want to be smart about it.
Yeah, they may not
and
run tempo
go
in those situations.
Pass.
Right.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about the beginning of the game.
No, I don't think the
we might
beginning
be
of the game
punting
matters.
a minute into it when before we'd be punting in
2 minutes in,
2.5
I don't think
minutes
that matters.
or whatever the number would
Just
be.
because that's more just a difference of did you run versus you pass.
You also have
That's
the
an
best.
argument against running versus passing.
You also
not
have the
tempo.
best punter in the country that hopefully pins them back at their own 15, even if you don't pick up a single
Unfortunately,
first down.
My prediction: he will not punt all year because we're not going to punt, except for one time on second down, just to
sounds
do
about right.
it.
Just throw it off. Yeah.
And that's where
Well,
the
let's
end of the
transition
podcast
into the
came from.
defense because I think that's a good question, Lucas. And so the defense, my lead in is to ask: is it going to be the best that we've seen in the last 6 years? Is it going to be the best that we've seen since 2011 when Brent was last here? And one thing I'll throw in about my views on the defense and my expectations, very high, echoing what we said before, guys playing their heart out, running full speed, but full speed with intelligence.
Correct tackling.
Correct tackling.
That's what I
correct
saw in those
technique,
videos.
Correct positioning. Right.
It wasn't the dive at him, throw your shoulder like the Buki bullshit.
Right.
It was actually head up, arms open to wrap
Yes.
somebody up and take. Even if you're trying to hit him hard, it's not just the dive at him with your shoulder and your arm down.
Absolutely.
That's the worst.
Well, there's more to
And
it
it's not the
than that
hold
even,
them
I
up and
think.
try to knock the ball out like
Right.
we did last year.
It's take them down.
Because our turnovers did go up last year.
Yeah.
But it also screwed us because we gave up 8-minute drives.
Right.
Because we're giving somebody's catching the ball at 7 yards, and then two
Extra
guys are tackling him,
5
one guy's trying to
seconds
punch
of
it out,
that. Mhm.
and he gains 4 more yards
Exactly.
for a first down.
No, I think it's all of that and more. I think that when you look at the hits, if you look back at a guy like Brandon Everidge, who would lay people down with some amazing one-hit takedowns, the difference was he was working out in the off-season. Buki and others that I would criticize, I think they arrive out of high school where they were phenomenal athletes and they could touch a guy and knock him down because they were going up against a guy like me. And then they come to college and they're playing with other guys that are great athletes that have been growing and developing, and the one hit doesn't take them down, especially when you're a smaller guy like Buki. So you got to have technique and figure out how you're going to. Now, if you're getting stronger, you can take a guy down with one hit. But again, you also have intelligent training and technique to know this is a time when I try to hit a guy and knock him down. This is a time when I try to wrap a guy up. This is how you tackle a guy properly. And all of those little X's and O's have been something we've been absent from our game for a while now that I think starts to return this year. So I think it'll be a defense that we haven't seen in multiple years, definitely not in the last 4 or 5, 6 years, yes. Maybe in terms of an entire package of again, coherence, maybe since Brent left.
I agree. I just wonder how long it will take to gel completely. Like,
Yeah.
thankfully we have 2 rum-dums to start. Nebraska looks pretty bad week 1 or week 0, so that might be helpful. Once you get in the meat of the season, is when we should have gelled at that point, which is when our tougher games start. You
Get
know.
Kansas State first game of conference play.
Yeah.
in
Hopefully
week 4.
that's not a trouble spot because our defense isn't,
Where they need to be.
Where they need to be. Because I think by the end of the year they'll be a great defense, and unless we have injuries. But Brent's been here since the spring, so
Right.
they've had lots of practice time.
Well,
Well,
one thing-
2015 defense was pretty good, right?
It was.
It was.
I mean, it's not good enough.
until it wasn't.
Yeah.
And that was Stryker.
That was Sanchez.
Striker, Sanchez.
Yeah.
Um,
It
think we had, like,
its moments.
Parker.
We have like,
It wasn't
Stephen
was
complete.
it like
Stephen
Charles
Parker.
Tapper and
It wasn't complete.
Yeah.
Charles Walker and
Yeah.
Except Seawalk didn't play really.
Geno Grissom, I think, maybe.
It wasn't. I think this defense will have flashes of something that's better than that. I guess one question I'd have related to the point you bring up, but I do want to hear your views on defense specifically. But are we entering 1999 or are we entering somewhere in the 2000 season?
that's-
And I mean from that,
Had that
like
wonder as
where
well.
are they in terms of gelling and buying into Brent has inherited a program or being granted a program that is far along the way to being the greatness he wants it to be, much advanced of what Bob had in
Right.
'99.
Yeah.
And so we saw amazing progress in '99, but growing pains, and we lost so many games we should not have lost. We had double-digit leads in every game, except
Notre
maybe
Dame,
Mississippi.
Nebraska.
So.
Texas.
I don't think
Texas.
athlete for athlete you
Yeah.
can even compare.
So it's not even comparable. So I think I have that concern that you have, but then I take a lot of confidence to say, God, we're not 1999 here. This is somewhere closer to 2000 or mid 2000, which again we didn't really come into our own until after the Kansas game in 2000. So I'm not saying that's a guaranteed national title contending team, but we're a top 10 team for a reason. So I think we're going to probably gel together the way we need to pretty quickly. What do you guys think about defense?
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously just to kind of go along with what everyone else has been saying, I feel like after Brent left in 2011, you had a little bit of these are still Brent's players and they still play like Brent coached them to play. I mean, go back and look at like Travis Lewis and guys like that who were just selling out still after he had left. But then you have that noticeable lull and dip in talent and in production in the mid 2010s and obviously now with Stoops and then Grinch even. I think it's going to be fun it's just going to be a fun unit to watch. I think last year we were all selling out and saying, I mean, we've talked about it on, I think 2 pods ago, all selling out and saying, man, this is going to be fun watching the defense be the unit to watch. And then come to find out, well, most of our talent only plays 40% of all the snaps. So not putting us in a position to win, not putting us in a position to be successful more than anything. And I think going back to just how we feel about the overall season, Brent Venables is going to set this team up for success. He's going to put the best 11 out there. If you're ready to play, or and it's always going to be that next guy up mentality. So, I'm looking at the depth chart. There is some depth there. There's a lot of young guys on that team. But I think some of these guys are going to get their shot, right? I mean, I think you're going to have some situations where you see a freshman out there, or to put as much trust in Billy Bowman after the year that he had last year, and he's been the quote unquote standout guy of camp. I think it speaks volumes to what Venables is coaching out there. So it's gonna be a fun unit. I think we're gonna be. I really, really think we're gonna be a lot better.
I think you're right. I like that point about a lot of guys getting their shot. We may be surprised at guys for the right reasons that come in later in the season and earn a spot or play meaningful minutes. Whereas before it seemed like it was just some weird game that was being played.
It's
that
not
you
working
didn't
with
know.
him right here, so maybe
no
we
one
shift him
understood
around.
what was going on. I think this will be clear, like, oh, well, they definitely saw something. Here's what they saw, and here's how this guy's immediately contributing.
Yep.
My optimism mainly just comes from the belief in the coaching staff, individual position coaches. Just
Oh, I forgot. It's a great point.
it's just I don't know. It's going to be better. I think the technique's going to be better. I think the drive's going to be better. The intensity's going to be better. We all agree the tackling's going to be better. And I know you can't go off the depth chart that was released too much, but I actually think this bodes very well in the fact that we actually did get a bunch of transfers defensively that have played a lot of football games, and they are not on the too deep. I mean, they're
Yeah, that was
experienced
surprising.
players playing 3-4 years, playing 40 games
That's a
at
good
their
point.
school, and they're not even cracking the too deep. So to me, that says that our talent that we have on the team has picked this up in easily. Not not easily, but they've got it under wraps that they can get on the field with the guys we currently have. Because I mean, you got a guy like Morrison, who Brent Venables played against for 4 years at North Carolina. It's one of the first guys he went and got out of the portal, and we're like, oh, okay, that's our boom. We've got our nickel. And then we got a kid from Wyoming that played a whole bunch of games. We're like, oh, good. We've got someone on the other side of corner from Woody. They're nowhere there.
Right.
And so I think that bodes well if you can trust the depth chart for those reasons. And even though we are young, we actually still have the majority of our players have played a lot of snaps. They're not new.
They're not
to the
young.
college game.
It's not a bunch of freshmen.
Yeah.
Well, that's funny. I mean, I wonder how much, with the...
Even the defensive end we got, Lualu. I mean, he's played a lot of football games, was a good player for Hawaii, and he's third on the depth chart. I mean...
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm wondering, too, with some of the guys that we're seeing out there that are on the 2 deep that were on the previous team. Like, you are learning a new complex defense, but I wonder if the fact that it didn't seem like Grinch was running much of a scheme made it easy for them to just say, hey, we're gonna drop everything and move on to this new mentality, this new way of thinking.
There's no previous information to dump out.
Yeah, and
Right.
there's nothing that you're like, well, I did it this way and I liked it, because there was no set in stone way, no coaching. There was no centralized, narrowed coaching, because guys were moving everywhere. Like, it's just so wild that, like, I love that guys have positions and they're going to be in positions. So,
and it's definitive on those positions. Not set in stone, but there is definite
We're gonna
direction
coach you
and
here.
definitiveness there. Yeah. So this is what you're going to do. Well, and Brent said that early on. We got to break things down at a level that is simple enough they can understand it and actually succeed in it. We can't just throw everything at them.
yeah.
So I like that a lot. Let's talk briefly about special teams. It's an important part of football, sometimes overemphasized, but sometimes can be very critical. I think it was underemphasized in the prior years, especially recently. I guess we heard from players that, Lucas, you were telling us that on Podcasts on the Prairie, they were saying that basically
Since Beamer left.
Since Beamer left, there wasn't anything they were supposed to do except just be safe, which is so the definition of some things Riley likes to do is just be safe. And the idea that you wouldn't try to return punts was such just shock and disbelief by me to think that was a good strategy, because you're just giving up critical yards. Even if it's just 5 yards, that's important.
Yeah.
We need to go get those. It sounds like he was taking some stuff for granted. Doesn't sound like we're going to do that this year. Sounds like we're going to be very aggressive.
It was cocky is what it was.
Yeah,
He
more
was
aggressive in the punt return and kick return game.
And I like it. I like it especially in the punt return game. You said, Lucas, before the pod, and I agree with this, that, and this is not something the general fan likes to hear, because the general fan, I think, likes to be more aggressive. But strategically, the better move is generally to take a fair catch on a kickoff.
Yeah.
The risk return it doesn't always line up.
Inside about the 7 or so yard line.
Yeah, it depends on the situation. It depends on who you're going against. But even if you're very mismatched, you don't necessarily want to run a kickoff back, because that's a lot of bruises that you don't need.
Yeah.
If you're playing Kent State, let's hope they're only kicking off once, but don't run that kickoff back. You don't need to worry about that. But if you happen to be in a situation like we were a number of years in the past, and you actually are receiving a lot of kickoffs against the Tulane or someone else you shouldn't be, you don't need to run those back necessarily. It's a lot of bruising. But
if you catch the ball at the 4 yard line, you get tackled on the 23.
You're
like,
that's a lot of
you just
risk
lost 2 yards for no reason.
for losing 2 yards. Exactly. But in the punt return game, I really like the idea of being aggressive. I think our strength will help us on the kick part of it. So both kick defense as the kicking team and the punting team in particular get back to a level of net punting that's really exceptional, as I think that's really important. So thoughts on special teams? Anything?
Yeah, I'm excited to see the aggression as well, especially in the punt game. Kick returns, agree. I think risk return, fair catch most of the time is probably necessary. But it'll be fun to see us actually set up punts and hopefully go after a couple. I mean, that's
Or have
Some
the
of-
strength to block the right way to actually threaten on kickoffs.
Some
as
of the
we
best
know
teams
that can be
some of the best teams
lethal.
I remember had threats in the punt return game
Yeah.
where it was Reggie Smith might go house horn or something like that. So no, I'm excited for that. I think it'll be great.
It's a major impact on the game to have a special teams score. It really is. It's-
Absolutely. Or just a big return.
I bet the
that sets
statistics.
things up.
I bet the statistics on win losses on teams that have a return for a touchdown it's probably pretty high.
I don't think it's probably that high.
I bet it's pretty high.
I bet it's not that high. Those are pretty. Well, there's two things. One, there tends to be a high degree of randomness in there, and the other would be you're probably looking at a team who already had a really high probability of winning. Just depends on the game. You'd have to adjust for a lot of factors to figure.
Yeah, I mean,
out.
maybe not like against Kent State, but I
Right.
don't know when you're going toe to toe with.
Well, I know at least twice in the OU Texas game, it was a phenomenally important play when OU ran a kickoff back for a touchdown or near touchdown. So
Or when Shipley ran it
to your
back that
point,
way.
that's right. So
And just as a fan, it's extremely exciting play.
it's
To me.
exciting. Oh, absolutely.
Keeps the engagement there.
Well,
for
you
sure.
want to see that you've got both an ability to do it as well as you bring some intelligence to how you're trying to execute it. Because, again, back to not being on the same page, it seemed like sometimes on a kick return, not everybody on that field knew what the hell was going
Right.
on.
It was a wait and see.
It was very strange. It was like a moment-by-moment decision for each and every player. Well, before we get into the atmosphere and what we think the excitement level is going to be, let's talk about our own personal views on the OU win-loss record. We're going to put these ideas down and we're going to actually record them for posterity. So, I'm going to kick it off, and we're just going to predict regular season, the win-loss. Did everybody have their number? Because I don't want to bias them with my number.
I've got my number.
You got
I've
your
it-
number?
I've got it typed out
Jay,
on
you
the
got your
screen in
number?
front of me.
Lucas, you got your number?
Yep.
All right. In the 12-game regular season, the University of Oklahoma is going to win 12 games, 12-0. I'm going to make the prediction, 12-0. Put me down, baby. 12-0. 12-0.
Lucas, what you got?
Let's go.
What you got, Lucas?
Well, the last couple weeks, I had us at 10-2, but I was a little worried about Nebraska. I'm no longer worried about Nebraska, so I'm going to go 11-1.
Ooh.
Nice.
All right,
Nice,
all right.
nice.
Step up. No, step up from last year. I like it.
That does not mean and I think you'd say the same thing, it's all context dependent. I won't be disappointed at 11-1 in the same way I'll be disappointed if it's 8-4.
Right.
So my expectation is we can be competitive in every game and we'll be favored in every game. And I think we can go 12-0. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that. But I think 11-1.
I mean, last year I had us at 10-2, and I wasn't
That's
happy
very
when we finished
true
10-2.
for the realism. It's very good predictions. Jay.
I'm on board with you. With capital H right here. It's 12-0.
12-0,
There's no
baby.
reason everyone stays healthy. The team plays how they play. There's no reason to not go 12-0. We are not playing anybody on the schedule that is equally as talented,
Or as well coached.
exactly, or has the coaching staff that we do. And I would actually going to be disappointed if we don't win every game. I'm not gonna lie.
Baylor's got a pretty good coaching staff.
Baylor does have a good coaching staff. I think
They
that's
probably
the
don't
only.
have the talent, but they've got the coaching staff.
Do they have a podcasting crew as good as us though? I doubt it.
They definitely don't
Kansas
have that.
Kansas State,
Chip and Joanna's pod's pretty great.
up until this year,
Overrated.
I feel like had a better coaching staff.
Oh, yeah.
I no longer think Kansas State has a better coaching staff
No,
than we do.
I agree.
do not think we will be out schemed, out toughed, out hustled against K-State anymore. Those days are gone. They're going to be very pissed off that we have a new coaching staff.
Preach, dude.
And Texas is just Texas. I just don't even care. Baylor is a very well coached team. They play very hard. They have most of their offensive and defensive lines returning, which is important.
But we do have them at home.
And they're not such a skill position based team that I'm not. And if you have the balls to get rid of your starting quarterback from the year before, to name a new quarterback, that means you must feel pretty confident. That is the only game I feel like we lose to Baylor at home in a hard fought game. I can stomach that because we're going to beat them again in the Big 12 championship game. But there's no reason to lose the game.
Agreed all around with that. So when it comes to Baylor, one point that I would make, but also as a question that you probably could answer, where, for what it's worth, in the last 4 or 5 years has Baylor been in terms of recruiting? Where have they been in the top 5? No. Have they been in the top 10?
No.
No.
I think Aranda does a great job.
He does a lot with little.
Of picking the right type of guys
He
that the
evaluates
big
extremely
boys
well.
are not going after, but are football players.
And he coaches.
But
And
you're not. So are you saying that he's top 5 caliber, but they're not top 5 rated, or are you saying that he makes the most with a limited group?
Yeah, it's like Connor said. I think he does a great job evaluating football players that are overlooked, 3-star kids that can straight up ball, but maybe they're 2 inches too short or whatever. But
And down the stretch, that matters. It's not. It's going to keep them from being championship level.
but still, talent-wise,
very, very
Baylor they're not nearly as talented as we are.
Right.
So if we
Agreed.
get the same buy-in
Agreed.
and the same level of coaching that
we
Baylor's
should-
been getting from
because they weren't
Aranda,
last year either, and they still won the Big 12.
Barely. Yeah.
Barely.
So, I had us at 12-0. I did. I then went down a shade in my crimson-colored glasses. I too have us at 11-1.
Wow.
1.
The wheels are falling off.
Wow.
So, and there's a couple reasons.
You should feel dirty about that.
should we switch seats? Do I need to go?
Yeah.
There's a couple reasons. I think 11-1. I will be disappointed with a loss because that's just how I am with any loss. But I think 11-1, just based on, I've seen a lot of teams in the past, even mid 2000s teams who were better coached, better talent, who somehow couldn't put it together for a game for whatever reason.
2008.
So, yeah, exactly.
We lost to Texas.
Exactly. So we were, in my opinion, which we were hurt, but we're better than Florida too. So I have us at 11-1. I still think we win the Big 12 title. I still think we push for a spot in the playoff, if not get in.
Oh, we'll be in the playoff if
yeah.
what you just said happens.
Exactly. So I've got, if I want to get specific with it, I think honestly, when Baylor comes to Norman, if everything lines up the way we think it's going to line up, it's going to be
Top 5 matchup.
top 5,
Game of the week.
top 5, top 10 at least.
Yeah.
And it's that stadium is going to be silly, crazy. And I think you see something along the lines, maybe not as significant, but something along the lines of like a Texas Tech 08, like just some bloodbath. And I think we just go in and But the game I have a watch out on, and I don't know why, but it just something in the pit of my stomach. It's in Ames.
Iowa State.
I don't like going to Iowa State. I don't like. I went and I looked.
It's not on Thursday.
It's not on Thursday, thankfully. It's just a weird game for me. That and a lot of people say they're worried about the TCU game.
Yeah.
I'm not real worried about the TCU game, just even though it falls in between Texas and K-State. I do worry about going to Ames, but nonetheless, I hope we get to the post-game pod after our 12th game against Texas Tech, and you guys are pointing and laughing at Lucas and myself, saying we're
won't be
12-0.
laughing.
We're 12-0 and we're going to the Big 12 title game. But
It's a very realistic pick and reasonable, and from an expectation standpoint, probabilistically, it's probably the right statistical
I was going to say,
pick.
realistically, I agree. 11-1 is probably a more likely scenario.
I would say it's probably the most likely scenario, and you have a pretty good likelihood of 12-0 and 10-2. It really falls off after that. 9-3 gets really difficult to see how we're anywhere worse than that. So
if it makes any difference, I put money on OU to win the national championship.
I think 9-3 or anything less
It doesn't.
is an obvious, very early Dylan Gabriel injury, and we're playing with a backup
that's
for like
true.
9 games.
And
9 of the 12
all of
games.
this is contingent upon we don't
Right.
get some situation like that.
If we look
happen.
back at the end of this year and we're 9-3, it's because Dylan Gabriel got hurt in
Right.
Nebraska or something random like
something
that.
crazy.
Something early.
Yeah, we're down 4 offensive linemen for half the season. Or
Yeah.
something.
Right, something really weird. Yeah. So let's talk about atmosphere and attendance. Do you think it'll be a noticeable change, a noticeable increase? Because I think it will be. I think it's going to, and I don't mean just what they're going to put together. I expect we're going to see a level of development of the video production and everything else that is going to really dazzle us. I think there's going to be some improvements. I would hazard a prediction that there'll be some things we cringe at a little bit or are a little disappointed in. But overall, I'm just thinking from the standpoint of the the fan atmosphere, how the fans approach it, I think it's going to be electric. I think the excitement is just going to be palpable. I think people are going to be more enthusiastic than we've seen them in a long, long time.
Well, donations prove that.
That's a good point.
Ever since Lincoln left and then Brent came in, the donations are the highest it's ever been.
Yeah, big
so
numbers.
Not just saying that the rich people go to the games, but I think you'll still have the student section leave at halftime when we're blowing people out because the students suck.
Well, hopefully
They always
but
suck.
hopefully we're blowing them out and they're leaving at halftime. Not it's actually a relatively close game.
Like
and
you
they're
look
leaving
over
at
at
halftime.
Tulane, which was a one possession game, and section 24, 5, and 6 over there in the corner is empty.
Well, even Nebraska.
And I just want to punch all those kids in the face.
Nebraska was the same.
Well,
way.
Nebraska and West Virginia were some of those that were really just
It makes no
just
sense.
absurd. Tulane was a little different with the limited capacity and all that, but yeah, no,
I don't think
well,
that's going to change in our lifetimes.
No, I don't think that'll change at all in general, but I think it'll be better than it's been in the past.
Right. There'll be a bunch of the
I think the pregame's going to be amazing.
Bud, Barry, Bob, Brent crowd that are going to be excited that they've got
It takes a
this
while
to
for
root
the students
again.
to come back as well. I don't know about when you say in our lifetimes. No, I don't think that's ever going to change unless they change the dynamics of who they sell tickets to and what they do with students, because there's too many good alternatives. But I do think they'll stick around longer and deeper into games that are close. So if you adjust for where we are in the game and adjust for the fact that we may be winning by a bigger margin and the game actually is over at halftime, adjust for that, and I think they're sticking around more now than they will be in
You weren't
the
leaving that
future.
game in college. Connor was leaving that game in college. I wasn't leaving that game
No, wait,
in college.
that's just the nature of everyone has that. Alabama has that. Everyone's leaving those games
Yep.
at the students. But I'm saying that won't end, but it will be better. If you could make the adjustments for it, it'll be better this year than it's been in the past. And I think that I don't know if you'll ever get away from that just by the nature of all the alternatives and other things they can do.
Lock the doors. Keep them in until the final whistle, unless you've got a medical emergency. You stay
And
your
even
ass-
then, maybe not.
You stay your ass in the stadium to the whistle.
sell cheaper beer.
What do you guys think about atmosphere and excitement?
I'm excited. I think the pregame I'm more than pumped for. Like, this is the first time in a long time I'm actually excited to get to the stadium early.
Yeah, I was
And-
thinking about that. We need to make sure that we get over there for that first game at least.
For sure. I'm
Pretty early.
anxious to see what new stuff they bring out.
How they line up and stretch. I mean,
Oh
to tell you
man,
the
yeah,
truth.
it's gonna be great. Like, I mean, we know the bell's not going away. I'm ready to hear that damn bell go off. And
Did they say that the bell's staying? or-
I mean, assuming the intro video they put out the teaser video they put out the other day
Oh, I
had
didn't
the bell
see
going.
I
It
didn't
was,
see that either.
like, hardcore goosebumps. It was great.
Oh,
But
I gotta
all
watch
it was
I
all
gotta
it was
watch
was a drone flying over the stadium.
Oh, I saw it on mute.
Yeah, at
Yeah,
dawn,
okay, yeah.
But it played the bell 3
Oh, it was
times,
working.
and it was just.
Nice.
So I think it's gonna be fun. I think overall you're gonna, like you said, the donations speak loudly. Like, I think you're gonna have a lot of people who maybe were on the fence about going to games who at least this season are like, I want to go see this team in action. Like, I want to go see some hard-nosed physical football that I enjoy and hopefully don't have to have a stroke in the third quarter because we might lose this game, and go enjoy a Saturday. So I think it's going to be awesome. I'm super excited to see just the loudness with the team coming out and everything like that. I think it's going to be phenomenal.
Yeah, I think initially, anytime you have a new staff and everything's been reinvigorated, the fans are going to go crazy. I think to sustain that, you have to see it on the field.
Right.
I think our fans could be very, very quickly can go back to, oh, we're just ho-hum. But like Connor said, if we're out there knocking heads and we're winning games how we should win games, I think it'll just grow. Actually, I actually think it'll get even harder and harder to get tickets as the season goes.
Think about it.
Because you're gonna have that set of people that are gonna wait and see what this team looks like.
Yeah, that's the thing. You're going to see the football team, the product on the field.
Hell,
is
even
gonna be
recruits are
like
waiting
nothing.
to see.
Yeah.
Major defensive recruits are waiting to see what's this defense gonna look like.
Yeah.
So I like that. I put an even finer point on it and relate it back to what we were talking about with the students as well. You got to earn it. And I think this staff understands you have to earn it. I think that when we look at fan engagement and fan buy-in, if it's not just the student level but every level, like you're saying, Jay, they are going to have to see some proof, because going to a game is expensive. It's expensive in time and effort.
Yeah, it's just taxing
Put
the
the
whole
money
thing.
away. The money's not the issue, even though that's a significant dollar figure. You're looking at the time and the effort and the weather and the experience versus your alternative of sitting at home very comfortably and watching every game on TV. So you'll have to have that product on the field that justifies it to keep it sustained. I believe it'll come, obviously, with my prediction. But more so, and this is the finer point, we were 9-0 at one point last year, and no one was happy. If we're 9-0 this year, I think we'll be happy because we deserve to be happy. We'll see a product on the field we can be proud of and actually have some confidence in. We were a very inconsistent and no confidence in 9-0 last year for a very good reason. I think and expect we'll see a 9-0 in the future that we can have some confidence in and say, I'm not wasting my time giving this team my heart. I think they're actually going to be able to follow through and make good on it.
Yeah, I think it's indicative, just maybe to round it off. We look back at the spring game, bring 75,000 people
insane.
out, and for a practice, and I'm not gonna say, that wasn't great football, but everyone stuck around, everyone was there,
Yeah.
So
even after the Baker speech at halftime, they stuck around to see,
So in my opinion, the buy-in from the fans has at least gotten stronger since then, because we've seen a lot more. So if
we've awoken something.
The whole
that's
base has been
any
galvanized
It
by
has been.
what went down.
Yeah,
It's
a renaissance,
and it's not just a revenge or a bitterness or anything. It's I think we have woken up from a slumber of complacency and a little bit of arrogance and just assuming things were going to work out and assuming things that were bad were always going to be bad. And now we're like, no, they don't. We can demand better. We can demand excellence on both sides of the ball. Well, let's get to our predictions of the OU score for OU UTEP, and then we're going to finish out with our locks of the week, which we are terming, what did we decide?
The realest deal lock of the week.
The realest deal lock of the week. That's coming up next, but first, what do we predict for the OU UTEP score? These will be predictions that we use in our own personal betting and also for Pride. Who wants to start us off? I already know two of ours because I know mine and I actually know Connor's. So, Jay, why don't you tell me your score?
I'll go 48.
Interesting number. 2 field goals, I guess.
I'm going to go 48.
Missed extra point.
16. A very unhappy Brent Venables 16. But not on the first unit, maybe not even the second unit. I think there's going to be a lot of rotating in players. There'll be a late kind of backdoor touchdown that skews the victory a little bit.
All right, that's interesting score. Interesting
So
numbers.
3 field goals and a backdoor touchdown.
Okay.
All right.
I like the idea that we're holding them to field goals. So, Lucas,
59
2.
for Oklahoma.
Oh,
Okay.
Just want to get that straight.
yeah.
I don't think it's gonna be quite that big.
This
a
is not
shootout.
the loss. The loss
Yeah,
isn't right
this
out of the
was
gate
loss.
to UTEP.
Nope. 59 to 14.
Connor,
59 to 17.
Shut up,
Yeah.
you tool!
I told you, man. I told you we were gonna pick. He has it as proof.
I have it as
my
proof.
God.
I went a little bit lower because I figured that you guys would be in the 50s.
59
No,
Oh.
you don't.
to 10.
Oh, you
Alright,
suck.
alright.
Yep.
All
Yep.
right.
I started at a lower number, and every way I looked at it and thought about it and looked back at the UTEP game when I'm thinking about what I saw in UTEP against North Texas, I just kept thinking, I don't see how we don't put a lot of points
That's.
up.
I should have went 56, but I thought I'll just throw in a field goal.
I
'cause
think we're
it'll
gonna
throw
do a
things
field
off.
I
goal.
think we're
I
gonna
think
trot him
we're
out
gonna-
there for some confidence.
I think so too.
Yep.
I think we'll kick a field goal when for all of those reasons. So yeah, that was all my logic in trying to get to a number like that. And then I actually have some faith in our defense. Not that you guys don't, but I think we're going to hold them to 10 points. That I think we might actually hold them scoreless until. Again, we can look foolish with this prediction, but late in the game they score on like a third team unit.
That's how I
or
gave him 2
something.
touchdowns. Was one. At the,
Yeah, late.
One
something.
at the end of the third, maybe one in the middle of the fourth. and that
Yeah.
would be the-
I'm kind of banking on, 1, not showing a lot. 2, I think Brent's just going to want to get out of the game. I don't think we're going to be hurrying up in the whole second half. I think we're just going to pound the rock, get what we get.
No, I think we might be trying to run our offense.
I don't think so.
And they want to get the Davis Bevel. He want to get him some
snaps,
snaps in the second half, some meaningful passing in there to kind of cement him as the number 2 guy.
Yeah, give him some experience. I don't know. I could see your point, Jay.
We've had a lot of previous opening games that were in the high 50s, mid 60s. I mean, so I
especially against this kind of an opponent.
Yeah, it's not out of the
I don't think
question.
it's too far out of the question.
No, not at all. All right, well, let's get to some realist deal.
Realist deal.
Realist deal. Locks of the week. That sounds like the realist deal you're going to get at a car dealership or something. Maybe I got our next sponsor. I have to talk to my neighbor about that. So, I'll start us off. I've got 3 locks of the week. We all have 3. We should have 3. OU, 31.5. Obviously, I've got a score like this. I'm going to make them my lock of the week. One of my 3. Rice getting 34.5 against USC. I think that, and this is not just trying to knock Lincoln or something like that. I think that...
Yes, it is.
No, it's not. It's history based on a lot of evidence.
He's going to be trying to win Caleb the Heisman.
And his inability, and especially on defense, to contain a team and stop them from scoring, I see a backdoor cover at least coming in that game. And speaking of another backdoor cover, University Louisiana Monroe, 37.5 against Texas. From everything I hear about Texas, it doesn't sound like they're very good. So I'm going to say that Monroe can cover the 37.5, so they're my 3rd lock.
That may be the OU Tulane game of this year. That game has all the makeup of being interesting. Cool. Good locks.
All right, Connor, what do you got?
All right, first lock I have is Houston over UTSA, 4.5.
I like that.
I think Houston's going to be
4.5.
actually Cincinnati-esque this year. I don't think they'll push for a playoff spot, but I think they're going to be a pretty good team. I watched Wyoming play last weekend. Abysmal. Terrible, terrible, terrible football team. Cannot pass the football to save their life. I've got Tulsa covering the 3.5 against Wyoming. Saturday. Third lock, I was between a couple, but I think I'm actually going to go Louisville minus 3.5 over Syracuse. Louisville's returning a pretty experienced quarterback, so I think Syracuse is really not great at football. So
They seem to want to not be great at football, to be honest.
I mean,
with
they finished with a 5-7 record last year, so
they're a weird team. It's a weird.
the fact
place.
they play in the massive dome up there is
it's
wild.
It's just an environment that seems like they're not serious about the game. It's kind of like Kansas, and similar to Kansas, they've got a rich basketball tradition, but it's just strange. They don't seem like they should be in this league.
Right. Do we think Kansas wins this weekend?
Kansas plays some high school team. There's no line on it yet. It's somebody that
really
is
not great,
unbelievably. Yeah, you have to look them up in Wikipedia.
Yeah.
And they'll probably play them tight. Lucas or Jay?
I'm going to go my lock of North Carolina State minus 10.5 over East Carolina. That's number 1.
Okay. Not necessarily in any order here, or is that your number 1?
I mean, that's my favorite game. Looking at the lines,
Okay.
that's the one that jumped out at me the most.
All right.
I'm gonna go Georgia minus 17.5 against
I like that.
Oregon. I don't think. I mean, Dan Lanning knows Georgia. He may know what to dial up against the offense. I don't know.
That's the only thing.
Yeah,
that
that's
hesitates
my only
me as
hesitation,
well,
too.
but
I don't
otherwise,
think
I
Oregon
like
has
that.
the athletes.
I agree.
And Georgia's reloading like crazy,
Right.
and that might be a lower scoring game.
Right.
So
It
that's
might be
my only-
24-3.
That's
and
my
they
only
cover.
trepidation about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it could be 31-10 or 31-7 or somewhere around there. And then my third game, I like Western Kentucky minus 16.5 against Hawaii.
Hawaii looked really bad
I
on
think
Saturday.
Hawaii is
They look
horrific.
so bad.
They looked really not good.
Talk about somebody that shouldn't even play.
I think if
this
West
league.
Kentucky can score 21, they'll cover that 16.5.
Yeah, it was just insane how bad they are.
And Vanderbilt's not good at football either.
Right.
They're going to try and
they
get
put
bought
up,
out.
They put up 60 plus.
And
yeah.
They put up 60 plus on that team.
SEC is going to they're going to buy out Vanderbilt here in a couple years.
Yeah.
Please.
I like Arkansas minus 5.5. I think Cincinnati
Ooh.
lost too many players to just reload.
We were talking
Cincinnati's
about that.
not a
Talking about
reload.
that earlier
Yeah, they had a
before you
ton
got
of-
And
here.
Arkansas is tough. They got a tough football team. Say what you want. It's an SEC team. I just don't think Cincinnati's going to be able to withhold in that game. I also like LSU minus 2.5. It's pretty much just who you think's going to win that game. Florida State's they're just not the same. And Norvell was a very good coach coming from a smaller school, and it has just not worked out so far.
Yeah, he had
Kinda
it
like
made at
Scott
Memphis.
Yeah, it is. It's exactly like that. I think LSU they're pumped. Anytime LSU is not very good the year before, it seems like they kind of like, oh, here we go. Where all of a sudden LSU's back to being LSU.
That's the Cajun deal they made with the
Yeah.
couple years ago.
And my third game, wow, it's really 17.5 for Ohio State, Notre Dame. That is, whew. I'm gonna go Pitt minus 6.5 over West Virginia.
I like that one too.
I just don't. Again, West Virginia, another good coach from a smaller school that has just not got it going.
Where's
We
that
get to
game
watch
at?
that tomorrow night.
It's
That is in
West Virginia, isn't it?
They're wearing white uniforms.
No, it's at Pittsburgh.
It's at
No, they're
Pittsburgh?
actually. Do they play the backyard brawl in
Oh,
the
in
Steelers Stadium?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, okay.
Well, I think
Which
that's where
is
Pitt played.
Pittsburgh? Yeah, that's Pittsburgh home field.
Yeah. Now, who's their court? They got the Slovis kid from USC.
yeah.
He's the starter at Pitt.
Now they lost their stud wide receiver to USC,
Yep.
but I don't know. I
Who
just
wasn't very happy, right?
not sold on West Virginia.
Yeah, apparently didn't get paid.
Didn't get paid. You gotta get paid before
Gotta
you
get
go.
paid, baby. So, boy, it's gonna be
Those are all.
it's gonna be awesome.
We had 12 different picks, didn't we?
We're going to have a post-game pod coming up, obviously, after the game. It's going to be hard for us to keep that to an hour. I know we're going to have a lot to say about the game. Unfortunately, but fortunately, we probably won't have as much to say about the game because it'll be a blowout.
Yep. 59 points.
But we will have a lot to say, I think, about everything else going on in the
I mean,
landscape
that's what
of
we said
college
about Tulane
football.
going into that game last year, too.
He's already reneging on his
You have us
prediction.
going 11-1
You have us winning more than he has
and
us winning
scoring 59 points on Saturday.
Well, we'll see, won't we?
We will.
We'll see about all that. And
Hey,
until
get to
then-
the polls on Twitter. We got 2 more polls coming out.
We got 2 more polls. We have 3.
Three more.
I'm going to do a game,
Do a game day
poll.
poll. All right, get to the polls.
Get to the polls. Let's vote. And until next time.
Boomer
Boomer
Sooner.
Sooner.